I, Countess Naravan Dracovin, Lord and Emperor of the Dracovin Empire, and welcome. It is time to continue my discussion on anime series, where I review them for you, and then let you know how you can use them in your Big Eyes Small Mouth games, your BESM games. Technically, you can use these in any role-playing game system, but I give you rules for how to adapt them to BESM in particular. Alright, so this week I have two more from you for summer of 2014, a suggestion for you, and then an inspiration based upon that suggestion. Which, may I note, that suggestion is a live-action series, so we're going to go over two Japanese live-action series today, rather than anime. Fun! But let's start with the two anime. We have, of course, Seirei Tsuki no Blade Dance and Zankyou no Terror. But we'll start with Zankyou no Terror, or Terror and Resonance. So, the start of this, we find ourselves in an alternate history Tokyo. In this world, there is a terror attack that shakes the city, nay the nation, to its core. And the only evidence of what caused it is a cryptic message by those that committed this crime. It turns out that this pair of teenagers are behind this entire crime and refer to themselves as Sphinx. There's a dark history to the nation, some corruption, experimentation, that they wish to bring to light, to basically wake up the nation to that which is going on within it. And they will do it through any means necessary, while dealing with the fact they have their own twisted history between the two of them. So the genres within them are, of course, detective. It's the entire discovering the crime. We know the criminals. We can see the detective. It's this entire situation of finding out information about it. In a way, it's also a mystery. The mysterious past of Sphinx and the two characters from it who only go by numbers. They have their names of the reality of the people that they've moved into the lives of to hide themselves, but their actual names. Just numbers. It's also a thriller, because they're always on the edge when they have to go and commit new things. Things go out of way. They have to deal with the fact of avoiding getting caught, managing to get away, and to commit the very crimes to wake up the nation that they want to. Now, I rated this one only a 3. It's an interesting concept, but sometimes some of the things with some of the characters can fall a little flat for me, and that's just one of the reasons that I didn't rate it higher personally. Now, if you're using this in a BESM game, I'd recommend 200 points. You're going to make your characters basically the members of Sphinx. Their entire goal of them will be to commit acts of terrorism, of violence, in order to wake up the nation. You should repeat what they do and avoid killing people as much as possible. Not try to go for killing. It's damaging, terror. You're not going for murder. You're going for just to fill people with dread. Bringing out the fact of corruption and darkness within it. If you want to bring in the fact of numbers, you could have all your characters be numbers themselves and deal with that own dark history. It's completely up to you if you want to use that aspect of this entire thing and sort of mimic the anime. But if you want to, go ahead and integrate it and then have your characters deal with that dark past and bring it to the surface when it comes with dealing with things with their entire plans. All while they attempt to balance a normal life so that they can hide what they're doing. Going to school, having reality, normal life, beyond all what's going on. Now, let's talk about Seirei Tsuki no Blade Dance. So this one, we go to this world where there are spirits, but only pure maidens can bond with these spirits, and then use them to basically become elementalists, specialists mastery of combat, which they go to a special academy for. Enter Kirito. Kirito is unique because he is a male that can bond with spirits. Now, this isn't to say that other males haven't bonded with spirits. It's just that he's the second one known in 1,000 years. The last one that was known about was like 1,000 years ago. So it is incredibly, incredibly rare for males to be able to bond with spirits. Not unheard of, just insanely rare. So he's invited to the academy, he finds himself in the way there and gets lost. And along the way basically runs into Claire. Claire was trying to basically bond with this sword spirit to make a second spirit bond that she had. And in the confusion and conflict, it ends up that Kirito bonds with this sword spirit. Because of this, because of the problems with Claire, he agrees to basically assist her and sort of be in a loose bond with her himself, to basically assist her on her own goals. Of course, each character has their own backstories, dark and twisted, that we'll have to deal with over the course of the story. Now for genres, if we're looking at this one, action to start out with. They bond with their spirits, summon weapons, have abilities to combat and battle it out, so they are definitely blade dancers. It's a fantasy. It's spirits, magic powers, that sort of thing. It is to a good degree a harem. He bonds with Claire, kind of gets into a relationship with her. There's other girls that he kind of battles with, helps out. He, generally speaking, doesn't have affection for them just because of his own upbringing. Kind of makes it hard for him to give bonds like that with people. But he, generally speaking, does help people out and acts like a nice guy. I rate this one a 4. It's not bad. We have some harem elements, but the action's really cool. The concept is interesting. Of course, the concept definitely leads to mostly women. Like 99.99999% of women are the people that can use spirits. That kind of leads to, of course, a harem element going to occur, even though if it's like minor in comparison. And there's this entire fact that like the males tend to be aimed towards like theoretically demon lords, and they have to worry about that kind of thing. So there's that a concept behind this entire thing that exists there. Now, if you're using the BESM game, I'd recommend 400 points. You're going to make your people basically elementalists and use spirits. Now, it's entirely up to your GM if any character is going to be a male. If there is one, there will be one character that will be a male. Otherwise, you'll be all females, and that's fine. You're going to balance out basically going to school, bonding with spirits, making new bonds with spirits, developing your abilities, possibly participating in the blade dance, the big competition. It's going to be up to your DM to determine the GM to determine the entire storyline you're going to follow, whether it mimics a bit of the actual anime / light novel / manga, or you go off on a direction on your own based upon this world. Completely up to you. But now let's move on and talk about the 2 series, one suggestion from you and an inspiration for you. Let's start with the suggestion. Kamen Rider. So as I said, this is a live action series, and Kamen Rider has been around forever. From the 70s, there have been so many series about it. We're just going to basically talk about the first series for a little bit and move on from there. So originally, we focus on this organization called Shocker that's basically plaguing the world. They have plans of world domination, and there's hints that maybe like dark organizations like the Illuminati and the Nazis were behind their creation to begin with. They kidnap people and turn them into mutant cyborgs in which they use to battle against the world and conquer it. And of course, they brainwash these people into being their loyal servants. We meet our main hero who basically avoids brainwashing. Takeshi, who's sort of this mutant grasshopper man, who becomes Kamen Rider and decides to fight against Shocker and defeat them. Along the way, he does manage to make allies with another one he saves from being brainwashed for Kamen Rider 2, because apparently they have to have 2 in the name. They also defeat Shocker and defeat their legacy, a second version of it, and then there's more series that happen over and over again with new enemies, new Kamen Riders, etc., etc., infinitum, until even nowadays we still see stuff from Kamen Rider coming out. Now, let's not focus on all of that. Let's focus on the genres for this series. It's superhero. He's a superhero. Kamen Rider. He goes and battles like villains and monsters and defeats them, and they melt into goo, all fighting against Shocker. It's, of course, a science fiction. They're creating mutant cyborgs in order to battle the world. It's, of course, also an action-adventure. He travels to interesting places to fight these monsters. He gets into big battle scenes, fighting it out. Now, I keep this one at a rating of a 3. There's part of me that likes these live-action series because there's a little bit of cheesiness to them, interesting to them. But there's also this level of cheesiness to them, and they have just... they're classics in a way. Classics and ridiculous, and even now they're new generations of effectively the classics kind of revamped, revitalized. So they keep going with them. It's still interesting. It's just not my primary thing that I would choose. I wouldn't mind watching one of them if you put it in front of me. Let's put it that way. I probably would get a kick out of it. More laughs than, like, whoa, cool. At least nowadays for most of them. Now, if you're using Kamen Rider in a BESM game, I'd recommend 350 points. You're going to group your characters a group of cybernetic mutants that basically avoided being brainwashed. Simple as that. You could have whatever storyline you want, that they escaped altogether, if one of them escaped and freed the others, whatever, and they're going to fight against some kind of evil organization. Now you could use Shocker, you could use any of the countless organizations that have existed throughout the history of Kamen Rider. You could basically put your characters into any of these storylines, or make up something yourself. Make up mutant cyborgs of your own. Make up reasoning, put it in anywhere in the world, anything like this. Sky's the limit. The basics are pretty the same. Organization makes mutant cyborgs, creates their own downfall, calls it a day. Your players are just going to be focused on overcoming the organization, beating their minions, beating their cybernetic monsters that have been brainwashed and can't be saved effectively, and eventually dismantling it, all along the way trying to protect humanity and kind of keep their own humanity to a degree on these big adventures that they're going on. That's the basics of it, and you should keep to it. Now let's talk about the inspiration, because if I was talking about Kamen Rider, I've got to talk about the other big one, which is both a Japanese series and an American series. Power Rangers. Or as it's known in Japan, Kyoru Sentai Zurager. Now I'm going to focus just on the summary of the original Japanese series that started this all out. But there was an American version of it. There have been countless Japanese spin-offs, countless American spin-offs. Somewhere along the way there's this weird bastardization that occurs, and I don't know where it ended or started, but basically these two series are pretty much, well, they're not really the same thing, they're the same concept. The basic concept is a group of people, a group of youths, gains some kind of power, tends to be 5 of them, fights against some kind of evil monster or organization that summons minions, summons monsters. The monsters often become giants. They have to summon giant robots to fight them. Eventually the giant robots have to combine into one humanoid giant mecha, battle against it, destroy it, banish it. Along the way they get upgraded powers, deal with maybe even getting more members of their teams, more Sentai members, more Rangers, etc. There have been ones where they meet with other teams of people, too, for big legacy meet-togethers. It's a complex mess of junk that you could take anything here for inspiration, I'm going to say that, but we'll talk about that in a minute. But, again, there's a lot of material out here, both on the American side and the Japanese side. And really, you can focus on any of them. They both keep going. They do. I don't know if they'll ever stop at this point in time. So, it's another superhero series. It's rather than a single superhero, we're Sentai teams. Sentai teams is a big genre. This is one of the originators of it. It's one of the big ones. It's the live-action Sentai team. When we're talking about anime versions, we want to talk about Battle of the Planet, Gotchaman. I kind of talked about them before. For this one, this is the live-action Sentai team grandfather, both in America and in Japan. It is the big grandfather of this entire genre. But it's a type of superhero. But I'm not going to use Sentai team as a genre, because it really technically isn't. It's just a concept. Now, it's also a science fantasy. It's kind of got a modern world, but sort of mystical powers, but also giant mecha and science and fantasy mixing together with spirits and crazy stuff like that. It's also action. They fight minions, maybe as themselves, maybe as their ranger forms. Then they fight monsters. Then they defeat the monsters. The monster gets giant, and they fight with giant robots and monsters. It's close enough to being a mecha without being a mecha, basically. Now, I rate this one a 3, too. I rated a 3 because I liked it a lot more as a kid. Like, nowadays, I don't think I could watch an actual Power Rangers episode. I might be able to watch the Japanese one, just because I get a kick out of that one and the differences between them. But, like, the original, I have nostalgia for that. I was much younger back when that came out. I recognize it a lot more in nostalgia factors that I can be like, ooh, original Power Rangers. I can name them and stuff, so that's why it keeps a 3 in my book. So, if you're using Power Rangers yes, in a BESM game, I'd recommend 400 points. So you're going to make your characters, first off, a group of youths banding together under some kind of power to transform into effectively your Sentai team /Rangers, which, called upon this power, will face against some kind of evil villain /evil organization. You'll battle against minions. You'll battle against monsters, protecting the day, all with storylines that could be monsters of the week, or you could kind of go straight to the point and kind of fight against various major villains within the organization, slowly whittling it away until you defeat the final villain and stop the organization. A lot of times they go giant and you're forced to summon your robots to fight against them, and then your robots will combine into one giant mecha, which you, GM, should have your players work together to design their kick-ass mecha that they're going to be using to fight against the things. So whatever all their robots that we've put together will have, they will design something that it transforms into, and the abilities and powers it has all together, working together, discussing it. Because that's a great way of developing that initial teamwork that they're going to need, because it is a Sentai team. And you want to make sure that teamwork is well developed before your characters dive into it. So hey, look, we found a way to develop your teamwork early. But that's it for this week. I went over 4 more series, including 2 anime series and 2 live-action series with Japanese roots. They're pretty much Japanese, and, this is an American version of one of them. But regardless, I gave you some suggestions about them that could help you to adapt them very easily to your BESM games. But if you want to put it in another role-playing game system, the basic suggestions for setting work just the same. It's just going to be a matter of adapting the systems. Some systems are better than others, easier to adapt to these. Maybe have openings for powers and such that make it easier to throw these together. Similar systems to, of course, the way BESM is built. But no matter what system you take, you will develop your characters, put them together, throw them into the world, and play with them. Because the suggestions work true. And these are interesting worlds to play in that you might want to build games around. But if you have any questions, comments, anything you want to say, anything you think I left out, please leave in the comments below. Please like, share, and subscribe. It shows for the channel, the empire, the work I do. If you want to show some extra support, you can always check out my Patreon. Link to the description below. There's some great rewards there. It helps to grow and improve the channel. But regardless, until the next time, I bid you farewell.